Maritain continues to make new friends, like Deal Hudson, who teaches philosophy at Fordham University and is active in the American Maritain Association.
I discovered Maritain in the midst of a Christian journey. I had been a Baptist, Southern Baptist by choice in my junior year at the University of Texas, studying philosophy. I tried very hard to be a good Southern Baptist according to their standards, many of which were important for me then and important for me now. But I always felt there was an overall lack of integration that I was allowed as a Baptist or a Christian. And although I appreciated then, and as I appreciate now, the wonderful emphasis on Scripture, its authority, I thought something was missing. And in seminary, I was exposed to the writings of Catholics, like St. Augustine in particular, and I began to realize that there was a whole world out there that I was missing. In fact, it was reading Augustine's De Trinitate, his book on the Trinity, that made me realize that the world of Protestant neo-orthodoxy didn't have the last word in theology or in spiritual formation. And you might say that that book opened a window for me through which I began to look, still looking. And when I went to Emory University in Atlanta, I was lucky enough to bump into a number of very vital Catholic intellectuals, Christians, who started feeding me books. Along with Maritain, I was fed Mauriac, Julian Green, Bois, von Balthasar, de Lubac, Chesterton, Dawson. But it was Maritain who hit me the hardest at that time. And it's Maritain that I go back to now. It's been 15 years since I first read a book by Jacques Maritain. But it was Maritain's art and scholasticism that you might seduced me into the Catholic faith, because I had always been a person who had been led by what I found beautiful, by what I found that offered delectation. And I suppose that all my life I had been looking for something that was both delightful and good for me, because so many things that are delightful or not. At the beginning, anyway, Maritain was a way for me to put the pieces of my own life back together, and along with that, help to construct a view or a way of looking that was an integrated whole, the way my Protestant experience was not holding up.
What do you see as the value of Maritain today? What does Maritain have to offer people?
Let me just say first, before I answer that, that it's very clear to me that Maritain's not going away. It's clear to me that we have now seen basically the close of that first generation of Maritain devotion that comes on the heels of a certain person's life and the circle of people that surround it. In the American Maritain Association, for example, which was begun by people who knew and loved Jacques and Raissa Maritain, we now have a whole influx of young men and women who, relatively young, who discovered Maritain through reading him almost accidentally. Like myself, we have come to this association and for one reason, to meet the people that knew Maritains, to talk to them, to hear the stories, to, in a way, as you're doing with this film, to get the legacy somehow in in minds and in books and on film so that it can be passed on once again. So Jacques Maritain work, I think, is anything growing after a momentary lull that is to be expected after such an incredible popularity that you saw in the 50s. Now the reason for this, which is I think what you're after in your question, the reason for this continued popularity, well, of course, there are many reasons. The most basic reason I see is that you have someone who was a great philosopher, a philosopher whose philosophical contribution, just the mere fact of his work, was rigorous, was creative, was worthy of to be classed with all the other philosophers of his century. But someone who did not see that as divorced from his life, his destiny, his responsibility to his community, to his country, to the world. In other words, he was a person totally engaged.
At the University